Let's go back to the 1930s for the Good Gulf program, one of the very first radio shows to put a company's name right in the title. Sponsored by the Gulf Refining Company, this variety program mixed music, comedy, and light entertainment to brighten the evenings of Depression-era listeners. Though few recordings survive today, it stands as an early example of how radio and advertising joined forces to shape American broadcasting.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, spring is back, and with it, Will Rogers and his alarm clock, all the way from Hollywood, California, brought to you by the makers of that good Gulf gasoline. With Will Rogers tonight are our Gulf headliners, Frank Tour's Orchestra and Miss Helen Gleason of the Metropolitan Opera Company. But just a minute before we begin tonight's show. As I said, spring is back, and it's time for every motorist to think about that worn winter oil in his crankcase. You know, winter oil takes punishment. And when it gets full of dust, sand, carbon, it means that your motor is going to take punishment, too. Well, now, here's an easy way to find out the truth. Drive into your nearest Gulf gasoline station. Ask the dealer to give you the famous Gulf Screen Oil Test. He'll take one drop out of your crankcase, put it on the filter paper of the tester drop, and you can see for yourself whether the oil needs changing. You do the looking and you make the decision, new oil or old oil. But don't take any chances. Ask your Gulf dealer for one of those interesting cards that show actual specimens of the harsh abrasives that may be in your crankcase right now. Then ask about the small cost of having the crankcase flushed with crankcase cleaning oil. It takes only a few minutes. It will thoroughly cleanse your crankcase, and you'll avoid putting fresh, clean oil in a dirty crankcase. And while you're there, don't forget that you can give your car added pep and running smoothness by filling your tank with that good Gulf gasoline. 40,000 service stations are ready to serve you. Well, now, Will Rogers is waiting for us in California, and here's Frank Tour's Orchestra with a tune that lifts the curtain. All right, Frank. Orchestra has just played Zing Went the Strings of My Heart from Thumbs Up. And here, ladies and gentlemen, is the lovely Miss Helen Gleason, whose first song is You Are Free from Apple Blossom.
Rio, the burning just a game that two are playing. Love is nothing but a game of a chance. One who chooses, very often loses. Love is never sure to be romance. Danger always lurks in huge sorrows, but he has named as you and me.
Now to Los Angeles, California for Will Rogers and his famous alarm clock.
How you covered it, huh? Well, here we are. We're right back out in California, the old orange juice belt. The old Sunshine State. Of course, it didn't show up today. We ain't had any sunshine today. It rained instead. But this time, I've been riding today. Been riding way off around up in the hills, back to the Santa Monica Mountains, and riding up in there. And it's running on the kind of peculiar thing. I prowling around up on the trails back in the hills there, and I saw about, I think I saw about four deer, and but about 5 Republicans showed up. Now that's an omen that don't look so good. Yeah, there's the Republicans. Now, in the old days, I'd ride through there. A few months ago, I could rode through those hills, and I wouldn't see them at all. I'd see more deer. But these Republicans are coming out of the brush now, and you'd be surprised at the amount of them that's showing up, you know. And you know, in the old days, they wouldn't cuss Roosevelt. I mean, they wouldn't cuss directly at him. They would kind of, like billiards, they would bank off of Tugwell to Moley, you know, they would shoot at poor little Tugwell, and then go off to Moley, then off with a brain trust, then down to Roosevelt. You know, maybe 3 questioning, you know what I mean? Now, oh boy, they got all the nerve in the world. They're going direct now, you know what I mean? They're just shooting direct at him without any... Well, you know, I figured out it's peculiar. It's a peculiar state of affairs that exists, and everybody that is doing better than there was 3 or 4 years ago, or making more money, has got in for the present. But they don't seem to realize they're doing better on the money that he's spending. You see what I mean? Doing better on his money. Now we all know that the government is spending all this money, and it's not a good state of affairs to exist. The country is in bad shape when there ain't nobody spending any money but the government. But now, what you going to do about it? Of course, one remedy would be for the people that have money for them to start spending it instead of the government. But that seems just about as unpopular as the Roosevelt idea. In fact, it's worse. Well, if we set out and passed a bill tomorrow and said the government can't keep on spending this money, but for government to exist, somebody has got to spend money. So from this day and date, the government's going to stop spending money and make it compulsory that the people do the spending. Boy, what a howl would go up from that, you know. They couldn't make that law stick. People would say, no, we saved it, and we have worked and we made it, and we got the right to do as we please with it. So that little idea is out. People ain't going to spend. That's out. So what other idea we got? We got to keep on working with ideas here. Well, if the government is throwing this money away, the only thing I see for the ones that are throwing, for the ones that they are throwing it to, outside of those that are absolutely in need of it, you know, well, the only thing I see is have them refuse it. You know what I mean? If you don't believe in what Roosevelt is doing with this money, why refuse it? It becomes, just say, no, it's government money and it's tainted, and I don't believe in the government. And I don't believe in the government spending all this money, and hence I don't take any part of it. And you say, no, you have paid this out. Now, for instance, take me, for instance. I'd say, no, the government paid this out for the people to eat, and here they are coming to see my pictures with it. I don't agree with that at all, you know. Now, you can imagine me saying that, you know what I mean, but if I was that, it would be the way to look at it, you know. I ought to refuse to accept the money. It's government money. I don't believe in the government spending this money, so I'm not going to take it. Here's a man that maybe wants to pay his loan at the bank. Well, maybe the RFC loaned him the money. You know, they're doing that a lot. And they get the money from the government, and they go to pay the bank. And the bank says, I don't believe in... The bank, naturally, all the banks says, I don't believe in the government spending all this money. But when the man comes to pay his loan with government money, they don't say, no, I can't take it. I'll just carry you myself. Boy, what a laugh that was. Yeah. Now, of course, it's going to cost the taxpayers a lot of money to loan this fellow the money to pay off his loan to the bank. You know, it's going to do that, but nevertheless, they kick on that, but they don't refuse to take it. They ought to say, well, no, I ain't going to take it. I made the loan, it was me that made it, and I should be the one to stand by. But you haven't heard that, have you? I haven't done it. Well, anyhow, there's not a person in America that received a dollar, no matter where it come from, that received a single dollar, and no matter where it come from, that it hasn't grabbed it, without asking any questions about it or not. It might have been paid out for relief for a starving child, but if it reached us, we was the starving child. It make any difference. But so the only thing I see for the fella that don't believe in all this spending is to not participate in receiving any of it. I can't very well legitimately criticize a fellow for spending money if I receive some of it without any criticism in the receipt of it, I mean, if I don't believe it's so, I'll at least make a little attempt to say that it ain't right when I grab off some of it. So this $5 billion that they're starting in to spend, we all know that that's too much money. It's too much money to take out and throw away or give away or whatever to do with it. We know that. We all know that. But until we refuse to take some of it and it comes our way, we ain't got much right to holler. Now, that brings us down to taxes. You know what I mean? That brings us down to taxes. And, boy, when you bring us down to taxes, you're going to hear a howl like a pet coon. Brings us down that. This money coming from all the government is thrown away. Well, it just sort of looks like it might come. Where is it coming from? Everybody says, where's the money coming from we're spending? Well, I don't know, but just offhand, I'd say it's coming from those that have got it, Now, I don't know. That may be just a rough idea of mine. I don't know. But I kind of believe that's where it's coming from. There's one good thing about the American form of government. The fella that's got nothing, he don't pay nothing, And, two, lots of times the fella, he has got something, but, and he ain't got any money to pay, to pay. He's got some, but he ain't got nothing to pay his taxes with. But he can at least let him have the property back and get an even break anyhow, But the big yell comes nowadays from the taxpayers, the big taxpayers. I guess I bet you when the Pilgrims landed at Plymouth Rock and they had the whole of the American continent, to themselves, just them and them Pilgrims there, they landed up there, and all they had to do for to get an extra 160 acres was shoot another Indian, Well, I bet you anything they kicked on the price of ammunition, I bet they said, what's this country coming to? You know what I mean? Like we're doing now. What's this country coming to? This country coming to that we have to spend a nickel for powder. Of course, they got the lead back after they dissected the Indian. But, no matter, I don't know, ain't it funny? No matter what we pay, I don't care whether we pay high taxes, low taxes, medium taxes, or anything. The yell is always the same, 100%. You know what I mean? They just yell 100%. Of course, we know our government is costing us more than it's worth, but do you know of any other cheaper government that's running around now? I mean, do you? I mean, if you do, they'll sell you a ticket there anytime. Now you can try Russia. I was over there. Yeah, you can try Russia. There's no income tax in Russia, but there's no income. Now, Hitler ain't got no sales tax, you know what I mean, but he ain't selling anything. Well, that's fine. Mussolini, you don't have to pay a poll tax to vote in Italy, but nobody votes. So, now the whole question is, how can we make such a holler on what the government wants to collect back from us, The thing is, it looks like we can't have everything like we want to, and but the whole question is the government, how much of this money which we are asked to pay back from in taxes have they paid us? You know what I mean? We must have got quite a little divvy of it, some way or another, indirectly, admitting, as everybody does, that the government is the only one spending money, and if they're the only one spending anything, and anything we're getting must come from them. It looks like an endless chain to me, only when it reaches our length while we don't want to cut any back into the kitty. I don't know what it's all about. This is just a kill time up here till something else comes up. I don't know. I don't know any more about this thing than an economist does, and God knows he don't know anything. Everything nowadays is just to make talk. Now, but next week, I'm going to present to you my scheme, You see, every man nowadays has got a scheme to bring us out of the wilderness, Well, not so much to bring us out of the wilderness as to bring himself out, I've been studying the Townsend plan and the Long plan and the Coghlan plan and the Roosevelt plan. Hoover, he broke out with a plan here the other day. And I'm working. Maybe I'll do it next week. I don't know when I get around to it. I'm working on what's called the Rogers plan. Rogers. Yes, sir, the Rogers. Yes, sir, the Rogers plan. Just about 3 more Welsh rabbits every night, and I'll be ready for the Rogers plan. I'm going to have it in shape, Anyhow, don't do anything. Now, don't sign up with any of these other plans. Don't you boys sign up, because I believe I've got a better offer for you than any of them. And don't be too critical of the present plan. If the Roosevelt plan is working for as long as we're all living on the loot, why we can't holler about it. See? But remember now, about next week, I'm going to give you the Rogers plan. I'm just working on a few planks of it there now, and I ain't got it quite in shape. But I don't care what they offer you, I'll do better. You know what I mean? I'll do better. I'll do better. Oh, say, wait a minute. Wait, I got to tell you about the movie that started out. This isn't what it started out to. Let me tell you about the movie. You know, they're figuring on watching the legislature, and if we put certain tax on it, say we're going to leave. One gentleman, Mr. Sam Goldwyn, this morning says we're going to England. There you go. I tell you, I bet you we don't go nowhere. I bet you that we don't go east of Vermont Avenue. The movies is we're in an industry that kind of depends on the goodwill of the people, and they overlook the biggest thing in all this moving. You can't get much goodwill by dodging taxes, you know, because I don't care where you go, they'll bring you in there, you know, and say, you boys don't pay anything, you know. But those guys that says you don't pay nothing, they ain't there next year, you know what I mean? They're washed up and gone home somewhere, you know. They ain't going to go. But I don't know where we're going to go. If we go to New Jersey, I can see, here's a scene from New Jersey. You know, you folks on the radio maybe can't see this like my audience here. Here's Miss Greer. Here's an actress playing a scene. Oh, in front of the camera in New Jersey. I love you. Oh. Damn those mosquitoes. I love you. Now, say we go down south. They're talking a good deal about us going down in North and South Carolina somewhere. Well, that's wonderful states. I've been down there a lot in the great old states and all, but naturally the influence of the people would have an effect on you. Now, if we go down in North and South Carolina, I can just see Rita Garbo coming before the screen. You know what I mean? After mixing with all those North and South Carolinians. And I love that dialect and all, and Rita Garbo says, yeah, I sure do love you, doggone. Yes, I sure do love you. I think I'll go home. I ain't going to mess around here no longer. I think oh, yeah, wait, I do. I got a lot to do. Goodbye. Next Sunday night, look for the Rogers. Good night.
Thank you, Will, and we'll be waiting for you same time next Sunday. Now, Frank Tours and the orchestra are ready to bring us one of the best of the recent tunes. Take a number from 1 to 10. Now, folks, there's some more good entertainment waiting for you, free for the asking, in the Gulf Funny Weekly. I know you'll enjoy its clever comics, and say your kiddies will jump for joy when you bring it home. All you need to do is to drive into the nearest Gulf service station tonight or tomorrow and ask for your copy of this great little paper. But don't delay, because they may be all gone. Notice the back page. There's some live news there about Gulf's handy household aids for spring cleaning. Gulf Spray Insect Killer, Gulf Electric Motor Oil, Gulf Gleam Liquid Gloss for furniture, Gulf Auto Cleaner, and Gulf Auto Wax. Get them from the Gulf service station or your favorite retail store and let them go to work for you. I just dropped in to remind you that next Sunday night, Will Rogers will again be the star in the Gulf Headlander Show. This program is brought to you by the Gulf Refining Company, which also brings you that good Gulf gasoline. This is the Columbia Broadcasting System.
Well, folks, that's all for this episode here on Randy's Old Time Radio Shows. Now, bringing these golden oldies back to life takes no small amount of time and effort from our good friend Randy, cleaning up the audio, converting the files, and making sure each show has the best audio possible. If you've enjoyed the program and you'd like to help keep these classics on the airwaves night after night, why not consider a small donation? Every penny goes straight to supporting Randy's work and helping this channel stay on the air. You'll find the links down in the description below. And for those of you kind souls who've already given, Randy tips his fedora to you. Your support truly keeps this old radio spirit alive. Thanks ever so much. And until next time, keep those dials tuned and keep the memories rolling.